It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
All right, we're back. We're still in the new year, 2023. I don't know how it's going for you, but for me, it's going okay. Disturbed here and there by the load shedding, but we're going strong. And by the way, guys, I feel like we should be grateful. Like every time the podcast comes, like just say a prayer because it means that there was power. Otherwise, it's a whole different challenge altogether. There's a lot, I think, that's going to happen this year. There's a lot of conversations we're going to have this year. Sure, there's just a lot. And thank you, by the way, for the support. The podcast was number 1 in December. So yeah, that's actually a big deal. Thank you for your support. Thank you also for the many subscriptions that have come through. I got a guy from Uganda that sent me an email, says, no, I want to be doing short clips for the podcast and whatnot. I thought it was one of those scammers, but it turns out that the podcast is breaking barriers. You know, we're also in other countries. And that's good, you know. Because Copa is, you know, an export, but, you know, we also export podcasts. Yeah. So anyway, like I said, we have exciting conversations that are coming through this year. And I do have a professional with me in the studio. She's a banker. She is a working mom, full of life. And I always tell people, when you see someone on the podcast and you go like, who is this person? Those are the ones you should listen to the most because there's a reason they're here. And the things they're going to say really are going to have a deeper impact on you. But this particular conversation is designed for people who are trying to grow in their careers, those that are starting out in their careers, those that are feeling like, you know, like I'm bummed somehow. How do I, you know, navigate this situation I'm in? And that is a conversation we're having today. And my guest is Kyembe Kyalusanza. She is the corporate affairs manager for Standard Chartered Bank here in Zambia. She hasn't always been that, you know, for her to get with. Yeah, because I don't think, have you always been that? No.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And for me, that's where the story is. So we want to know, how does someone who just graduated at UNZA or at Unilas or at Cavendish or wherever they are, because obviously you went through a rise, you know, in your career for you to get to where you are. You guys, Lusaka is driving. It tells you a story that, yes, that's what a corporate affairs manager should drive. Yeah,
Really?
but the whole point for me, like I did say, my interest is in the rise, you know, in the rise. But before I talk about the rise, first of all, how are you? How's the new year? How's the load shedding in your area? Are they following the timetable? You know, those are...
Well, I'm great. I'm doing great. I'm actually really, really happy to be in the new year. It's just fantastic to be here, first of all. But I think it's just, you know, being here in the new year just shows how good God is because we take that for granted. But the very miracle of waking up for me is the miracle. Load shedding, the outfit.
I was reading someone saying that it's rude to judge someone when the clothes
Someone's
aren't
outfit.
ironed.
No, my clothes are ironed. It was just, it's their stretch. I think we all have to invest in stretch now because you're just stretching your body. So no, load shedding has caught me by, well, I don't want to say by surprise, but 12 hours is a long time. But hey, you know.
It's a prayer point.
It better rain, you know. I'm just praying for rain. That's all I'm doing, you know, so we don't have this again. But yeah, I'm great. I'm fantastic. I'm excited about 2023. I normally write something around this time, like, you know, as the year starts. And my first post is normally something I want to say about the year. So I haven't said anything yet. But it's very deliberate because I think a lot of times when you see the 1st of January, got lots to say, lots to write about, but I normally wait until like the 4th or the 5th to sort of give my thoughts. It's not deliberate. I think it's just something that gives me time to think through. Yeah, I think I'm ready to write something about it. So, you know, but generally excited about 2023. Yep.
Okay, so like I said, our conversation is really around careers. Like I did establish, you are in corporate affairs. Talk to me about what was your training, your initial training, like at undergrad?
So I actually did a Bachelor of Business Administration at Cavendish University. That was like, I think, years back, to be honest. I think our graduation was like the fourth graduation. So you can imagine how many years ago. Am I giving out my age? I think I might be. Yes, I think I might be. No, so yeah. But I did a Bachelor of Business Administration at Cavendish, and I graduated in 2011. That's my general background. But then I sort of worked whilst I went to school. So I didn't have the full university experience, I'd say. I went to school with the evening students, so I could go to school and work at the same time. So my undergrad is a BBA. I'm currently pursuing my MBA. So no, it's got nothing to do with communications.
I thought you were done with your MBA.
No, not yet. Not yet. Yeah, I'm still on it. That's the plan for this year. Have to finish it this year. But yeah.
Yeah, I thought because again, some people say if you do your undergrad and your postgrad in the same program, kind of like limits you.
Not really. I mean, first of all, look at me. I did a BBA, but I'm in communications and now sustainability. I find that your first degree for me is just a degree that makes it wakes you up to think differently. That's how I think. That's what I think about your first degree. I mean, I know people who are marketers and have a Bachelor of Science in microbiology. My sister, case in point. You know what I mean? But I think but I'll tell you what that degree does for her is she's very analytical. Extremely analytical. Like she really breaks down the whole thing. So for me with business administration, it gave me a very wide spectrum. I think that's probably why I did it. My MBA was probably driven around a little bit more. And your MBA positions you to think in the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To actually apply and think in real life situations. Whilst your undergrad, I think, opens your mind, right, to start to think differently about, it moves you from high school, college to you're now thinking, you're now applying. Exactly. Yeah. You now must be, an implementer, if I can call it that, right? Because I think you will find people who have done the undergrad and they're basically probably, bookworms. And that's not a bad thing. Perhaps that's the choice they've taken. But for me, your first degree, I think, opens your mind up to think differently. Your MBA, or at least what it has been doing for me during the journey, is to think critically, analytical thinking, critical thinking, and applying what you're learning, whether it's from experience. And I think maybe that's the MBAs are set up a bit different from undergrads, right? What you're learning to applying it in your actual work situation. And sometimes it may not work, right? It actually may not work, but it also teaches you to think very, very quickly and, with agility. So, to be very honest, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, I really don't think your first degree should limit what you do.
Yeah, because there's some people who you get into the first degree, midway you go like, do I really want this? Or you come across some subjects that make you feel like, you don't know what you're doing.
It's funny you say that. I experienced that with some young people that came through to the bank and they were like, I'm halfway through my course and I'm thinking, am I doing the right thing? And I'm like, well, I don't think you have to change it. I think you will still find, and I guess when we keep talking about, our growth space and my career space, I found that there's nothing that I've ever done in my career that has not paid off, right? And I mean, when I say nothing, I mean even the painful, tough job that has not paid off. There isn't anything that I've done that has not paid off. And sometimes as a young person, I don't know if it's because of what we think it is or how we think it should be. We almost, when you hit that glitch, you almost want to say, gosh, I shouldn't have done this, or I did the wrong thing, I took the wrong turn. But, when I look back, even through my steps within the bank, nothing I've done in my career has never paid off. It doesn't feel like it's paying off at the time when it's painful and tough and, you have a difficult boss, for example. But what I mean by that is, something within you has got to grow or develop, whether it's tenacity, whether it's how you process things, whether it's how you interact with people. So that's something nothing would have, it's never a zero experience. And it took growth, like, I think even for myself to realize even those tough career moments, they paid off. Even when I'm like, I thought about just the other day, I was, when the rain started and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember starting school and I was on a bus. I was going home and my dad had passed away. I was feeling really soppy about all of this. And I was on a bus and it started raining. And I was dreading the walk from the bus stop to reach home. And what would happen is sometimes when you get off the bus, you'd have to be like passing through like ditches of water and, holding on to an edge. Not walking on the edge of the road, holding on to a hedge to walk through. But years later, I'm sitting in church, actually, and this young person tells me, says, the rain started pouring, like heavy rainfall. And she said, you know what? I don't like rain. I'm just praying for a car. So I laughed and I said, I used to do that. I used to pray for a car. And she said, really? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, if I could just have a VITS. If I could just have a VITS or an IST. And I started laughing because VITS for me was a big deal back then. And I'll tell you why. Because every time it would rain, I'm like, dear God, can I just have a Datsun? I think I told you about this.
Yeah, that's the story.
I just want a Datsun. Please, God.
VITS was too much for you.
Yeah, VITS was too much. Yes, I just wanted a car, because of the rain. So I told her this story. And I said, I used to be like that. I would literally tell God, I just need a Datsun. And she said, because you used to get on a bus. In that moment, I looked at her, I'm like, wow, yeah, yes, I used to. And she goes, I can't picture that. I said, I did for a long time, actually. She goes, no, I really can't picture that. And I said to her, why would you say that? And she goes, well, because, when I see your posts, because, she's on my WhatsApp contacts. I see your WhatsApp posts, and I wouldn't think you'd have ever gone on a bus. And I took that opportunity to sort of encourage her. And I realized, when I was going through what I was going through back then, years ago, I didn't feel like it's something that I'm going to use to encourage someone to say, no, hang on. You've gone to school. You can actually do this. I said, I actually did. And I gave her, we just talked for 5 minutes, but I saw her face light up. And she's like, you know what? I need to talk to you some more. Or, I didn't know you did this. That means I'll also get a car. And that for me, in that moment, didn't feel like an experience that would change someone's life or cheer them up for the day. Right? But it did. So when I say nothing actually has ever happened to me that I can say was pointless in my career growth, I think is not true. I remember when I got my first car, it was not a Datsun. It was an Alex. I totally loved that car. I gave her a name. Oh my God, yeah, it had.
What was her name?
Her name was Rusty. But I didn't even know the big deal about this car because I got it from some guy who had really pimped up the tires. And everywhere I stopped, I'd be asking, can you sell me your car? I'm like, why would I sell you my car? It's my first car. But I appreciated it so much. I think my process gave me a lot of room to be grateful every step of the way. When rain pours now and, I'm thinking about that, I think it keeps me humble. You know what I mean? It reminds me that it hadn't always been like that.
Yeah.
It hadn't always been like that, but growth does that, right? It's either you can use it and say, I'm going to just crumble, or you're going to use it and say, you know what, I don't want to be in this space again, and I'm going to keep growing.
Yeah.
So,
and talking about the growing that you mentioned, so some people go to school, you get your degree, then you begin to build experience, so you get these jobs that are not really the jobs that you want.
Which
you
I
get
did.
The point, right?
Yeah, I did that as well.
A lot of people go through that. What did you go through, on your route to where you are now?
So remember I told you I worked to go to school. So 2005, I lost my dad. And for me, dad took us to school, pretty much. And my mom, my mom is like my biggest cheerleader. I need to get her pom-poms. Like everyone needs a mom like my mom. So I hadn't gone to school. My dad passes away. And now I need to go to school, right? And in Zambia, I guess maybe unlike other nations, you have to have that paper, that degree, or that qualification, or whatever it is, right? So I couldn't quite get the jobs in my mind I thought I wanted, right? But there was jobs, right? There was jobs that were any job. So my first job actually was at Armco Security. And I remember telling my siblings about this. I didn't tell them what job it was. I just said, I've got a job. I'm at Armco. And they went in a panic. You know what? You don't have to go into being a guard. And I just found it really funny. I'm like, I didn't say I'm going to be a guard. Okay, I let it sit for a while. But trust me, even that experience, I have a very different relationship with guards, because I think having worked at Armco and seeing how that whole process actually works, it makes you a bit more human. You're dealing with actual human beings who are not sleeping whilst you are, you know what I mean, to keep you there. So my first job was at Armco, and I was a PA, and I got this job just based on my grade 12 certificate. I did this thing where I had a CV, a one-page CV, but I put extra spaces, like double, triple space, so it could go onto the
like
second page.
So I feel like one page is like,
I'm not, you won't get a job.
Yeah.
So I had double space, triple spaced my CV, so you can have 2 pages. And the person interviewing me was like, I think you could tell, like, this girl's not qualified, right? I mean, he was like, I don't really care much about qualification, but you got spunk with the right energy. I guess maybe when you do talk to me, what you do get is energy. So yeah, it was energy, I guess, and attitude that got me that first job. And I had never been a PA. I couldn't, the only experience I had with typing is what I learned in school and typing documents for my dad. And that's pretty much it. So, but then one thing for me is, like I said, I look for the learning opportunity in every opportunity, because it's there. Right. Whether it's a bad experience, in the moment, you won't, trust me, I'm not always sitting there thinking, I'm crying, oh Lord, what's the learning in this? No, maybe a few weeks later, I'll be like, the learning in this was this. So it's like I got to learn on the job. And that job taught me how to work in a very different environment. It was my first job, official job, right? Well, let me say official job, because I did have another job. Like when I just finished school, I worked for some NGO, which taught me, I used to go all the way from Bonaventure in Makeni, and I would go and work in Lilanda, Zingalume. Yeah, I'd walk.
You'd walk?
Yeah, I'd walk in those areas to go. I'd get on a bus. Obviously, I knew the buses. But then when I get there, because it's a community job, I'd walk, and talk to the community, talk to the women, because I worked for an NGO for like a few months. Then my first official job then was the Armco job. I called it official because I was like the one where now I'm on a payroll. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I went to Armco. I was a PA. I stayed there for like 1.5 years. At the same time, joined the... So it was a PA to the commercial director. So somehow I was in the commercial team. So learned sales and marketing from there. But I think one thing I learned from my boss at the time was he was a people person. Very, very personable. And I could tell, we could be having the toughest day, but somehow we will manage to get through it, because he's driven around people. Like people were a big deal to him. Then I left Armco, and by then I'd say at school. In fact, how I started school was in my first month or 2 of working under my boss. I told him, I said, you know what, as you can see, I'm in grade 12. I have a grade 12 certificate. I need to go to school. I found a place at Cavendish, but I don't have 8,000 kwacha. So since you pay me, could you give me a loan? So I asked for an 8,000 kwacha loan within my first 3 months of working. And I told him each month you can take out 1 grand. And that's how I paid for my first semester at Cavendish. I got a loan from my boss. And I paid 1 pin every month for that first semester whilst I was saving. So now I'm working, so I'm also saving for the next semester. I'll tell you, getting through school for me was not easy. Lots of support, I guess, from my sisters, my mom. But then also myself, like I had to take myself to school. Literally, when you say you can't afford to fail, I mean literally cannot afford to fail. You can't. If you fail, you're paying. You don't have the money. You don't have the money to pay. Exactly. So I did that. So I went to school and I worked at the same time. I left Armco, and at the time, I think the there was an opportunity to work at an event management company called Africast. And I was only going there to cover this lady. And I think she's like my guardian angel now that I think about it. Her name is Kasali. So Kasali had come to a concert once at church. I was emceeing a concert at church. And this concert was poorly attended. It's like half the room. But I emceed that concert like the room was full. All right, because I was having so much fun. After that, apparently Kasali was in the crowd, and that's actually how she came across me. She found me emceeing a half-full concert. And every time there'd been an opportunity, she'd remember like, hey, you know what? Someone's looking for someone to cover for 2 weeks because the person they had working for them has lost their dad, and they've got a huge conference coming up. Can you cover? I'm like, 2 weeks, sure. For 1,500 kwacha, I'll take it. So I went and I did this, but I worked in that role like it was my permanent job. I worked. And maybe if you ask me about what are one of the things that takes me through spaces, I think for me, it's attitude. Your attitude and your mindset is very important to take you to the next stage. And if that's messed, in fact, I like this phrase I came across, which is your attitude will determine your altitude. That's very true. Absolutely true. So I worked in that job. I had no idea, all right, about event management. Nothing. But learning, as like I said, being dropped in an unknown space and being told you've got to work is probably, it typifies a lot of what I've done in my career. It is new environment. You've got the right energy. Do something. Yeah. So I worked in that role for those 2 weeks, and there was great feedback from the exhibitors. And I laugh when Chimwemwe was my boss at the time. He came to me and says, "Yeah, I got good feedback about you, so maybe we can try you out." For a few months. But that's actually how I got my next job. I literally went as a temp and took on the job and stayed there. Africast was a very small company, but did quite a lot at the time. I think it was the first event management company that did conferencing and exhibitions. And trust me, that job taught me to think on my feet, like literally think on my feet. But I'll tell you, I made such great connections. At the time, I think I was too young to know what network is, network and net worth. It was just great connections. I got great connections from Africast, but also great experience. But it didn't feel like it at the time. It actually didn't. It felt like this job is hard. It's a very hard job. I want to get paid more money, but I'm not. It's a hard job. But trust me, I didn't know years later I was going to use those skills I learned in that tough job in my job in the bank right now. That was years ago. That was like, 2008, 2010 maybe?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. But when I joined the bank, and sometimes, there'd be a challenge thrown to the people in the branch, and people are like, yeah, no. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, it's doable. Because in my head, I've been positioned to think outside the box and on my feet. I literally remember calling my former boss at the time at Africast and said, you know what? I am glad I went through what I went through, because that has positioned me in a very different way. But that was also my introduction to communication. Because we're such a small team, we used to double hat, triple hat. So I did the PR and the marketing. Not because I was trained for it, I just liked it. I did interviews, I wrote adverts, I did voiceovers, just because it's part of my job. I didn't even know it could make me money at the time. Yeah, so that was Africast, and it took me through school. But once again, an opportunity came up again, and I'm telling you in this chronology because it then gives you an idea about how it then works around how I got into communication. So once again, an opportunity came up, there was a live TV show that at the time, what were they called again? Zane. They're called Zane.
Yeah,
yes.
Zane.
Zane wanted to run a TV show, and I was called for auditions. And when I got there, I saw popular faces. I was like, Kyembe, what are you doing here? These are like popular DJs. You not even a chance. You've never been on, you've never hosted nothing. Okay. Are you crazy? And the time was running out. I'm like, okay, I'll go first. And when I walked into the audition, it was like, you're going to be presenting a show. Can't tell you much about the show, but present it to us. I said, what? Do you have a script? They're like, no, create your own. I'm like, okay, this is new. And I spoke into a camera with some fake show I created in my head because I had to audition.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it. And you know when you finish auditioning and people are just staring at you like, you're like,
you don't know how to make of it.
Yeah. Like, did I do the right thing? So that passed, right? And then I went away feeling so soppy about it. I'm like, I'm just finished school. I just go to South Africa at this rate, because Zambia is not working for me. But then days later, after feeling sorry for myself, thinking they must have picked those popular DJs and personalities, I went to take a shower. I found a missed call. Now, if you know those days, you'd actually identify a Zane number. I think it's still the same case.
Yeah.
I was like, what? How could I have missed this call? I called back and they told me you got the role. I'm like, what? No way. So I got the role and it used to require that I work once a week, and that week paid me my monthly salary, like once a week. Yeah. From what I was getting at my previous job. Can you imagine? So yeah, as you can guess, I obviously took on that.
You left the security company?
No, I was at Africa's at the time.
Africa.
Yeah, so and I took the job and I needed to pay school fees. So that's how, when I say miracles happened for me to get through school, literally, I could now pay my school fees. I think by then I was like in third year, close to fourth year. Actually, my fourth year, because I graduated the next year, yeah. So that's what happened. That's literally how I went and learned. Now, guess what? I went and I did live TV. I have never done anything up to that stage around TV, nothing. And, he's a very popular person now, so I'll try not to mention him, but he was very hard on me. He literally made me feel like you are the amateur. Because I did the show with Chi, who's a great friend of mine now. I learned quite a bit from him. And it's like, yeah, she's just not, I would feel very not enough. Yeah.
What's that syndrome again?
I'm trying to think about it. I can't remember. But yeah, it felt like I just couldn't get it right because...
Imposter syndrome.
That's right. You're right, actually. Yes. So yes, that's the one.
Like,
so,
I'm not good enough for
this.
Yeah,
I just constantly felt like I'm not good enough because I would get a bashing. But believe it or not, I met him years later. And he saw me in my role now. And he's now telling our CEO, I worked with her, this girl.
I meant her.
Yes, Anyway, look, things like that will happen. But I think maybe that, like I said to you, there's no experience I've ever gone through that didn't mean anything or learn something from that. It just made me really work hard. It just made me like, no, if they picked me out of all those popular DJs and personalities, then I should be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I learned about live TV. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like my TV experience, right? And then when that ended, I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to leave now. I have finished my degree. I've given in my dissertation, and I'm going to be leaving the country, because, now my siblings had now managed to settle and they're doing better out of the country. I'm going to go join them. Then I remember when my transcript came out before my actual graduation, I printed 10 copies of my transcript, my CV, and I borrowed a car. I had no car this time. So
what happened to the Alex?
No, the Alex came when I joined the bank.
Okay,
The Alex came when I joined the bank. This is like, no, there was no car at this stage. No car. I borrowed a car. I parked it at Access Bank near North End. And I said every bank like I was going to drop my CV. And I wasn't just like, I'm dropping my envelope at the reception. No, I would ask and say, can I speak to the HR person? Yeah. And, some would accept, some would not. And I said, my name is Kyembes, what I can do. Then I went to Standard Chartered at North End because I called. I'm like, where does the HR sit? They're like, at North End. I said, okay. I asked people who work there. I got there, and if you ever went to North End, you don't see anything but the door and the guard.
Yeah. I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah. So I got there and I found the guard, but the guard was at Armco Security.
See how God works.
Yes, exactly. So I asked her, I'm here to see the HR person. The guard goes, Madam, does she know you are coming? I said, no. They call her. They give me the phone. Hi, how are you? I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? My name is Kyembe. I brought my CV. I'd like to speak with you. Then she goes, no, at the moment I'm currently not able to come down, but just leave your application there and I'll get it. So I hang up and I told the guard, not my proudest moment, but I'll share it because it worked, I think. So I told the guard, I said, this envelope better get to HR. He says, yes, madam. I said, it better. If it doesn't, I'm going to tell X-Ray 1. So X-Ray 1 is like the top guy at Amco. I'd left Amco years ago. Blackmail. Not my proudest moment, but I told him, you've got to make sure my envelope gets there. It did. Long and short of it, it did get there. I always laugh and say, wow. You know what's so funny? Because when I went back to North End, I found the guard and he says, madam. It was so funny. But anyway, look. So then I got called. I remember I was wrapping up and I got a link to do a talent assessment. Oh, you've been invited to a time by Standard Chartered. I'm like, Standard Chartered? What? And, interestingly, Standard Chartered was one of those organizations. Every time I drove past in a bus, my bus used to come from Charleston, past there by the roundabout.
And then go to Millennium.
I'd be like, one day I'm going to work here. I literally used to, and I do that. There's another place. I don't know if I should share it here, just in case. But there's another place I did that to and haven't yet worked there. So,
and you know what? People actually believe that because there was one time we were working with my wife around some neighborhood, and there's this big plot that we saw. That place is where it's a very developed neighborhood, but then there's just this one
random plot.
It's just a plot. To get a point, it's just a plot. And she was like, "No, let's go around 7 times." No,
I'm that person.
You believe that?
Power of speech, yes, spoke. So I used to say it. I'm one day when I work here. Every time, one day when I work here. And then, I remember the one time they did the Diva account. I was like, what? This bank, one day when I work here. That's what I used to say every time. And look, I am working there now. Yeah. But yes, that's what I did. And, when I got the talent assessment, I was like, wow. I did the assessment. I was called for an interview. And I went to the interview. It was an interview for a teller. All right, a teller job. Remember,
your CV didn't say what you wanted.
No. I just applied.
Applied.
Yes,
for employment.
Give me a job. No,
I can do anything.
Because look, my background was obviously in communication, service, customer service, and whatever. Yeah. So that's my letter was toned that way.
Yeah.
So I went, I did my interview, and I remember in the interview, at this stage, I didn't really know who she was. All I know is she's in HR. She asked me, she goes, I see you went to Lake Road. I said, yeah, I did. Then she goes, we've got a few people who work here who are at Lake Road and in the same year as you. And, they're ahead of you. This job they're trying to get is a very entry-level job, but they're ahead of you. What if they come to you to serve them? What will you do? So I said to her, I'll serve them. I'll serve them. It's my job. But I also know I'm not going to be there for too long. I know what I can do. She smiled and just wrote down.
You're like...
Yeah. I think she's like, really? Oh, you know what I mean? Well, anyway, so I remember that finished and I told my brother and I said about this interview. And I got the job, the teller job. So I went to pick up my offer and Sui, I was like, what? A whole graduate, a whole me with a degree. I must come and work for, this is like entry-level money. I need more money. I have a degree now. I'm qualified. I should get more money. And I remember I told my brother about this job and he was like, good. So you're staying in Zambia. He was supposed to buy me a ticket to go. Yeah. I said, staying where? For this job? No, it's a teller job. Why? I want to come to SA so I can come work there. My brother's like, that's a big bank. You're going to stay. I'm not buying your ticket. I said, I'll find the money to buy myself a ticket, but I'm coming to SA. But a friend of mine already worked at the bank at the time, and I met him that day, and I said, look, this is the job I have. This is my offer. I said, look, yeah, it's not what you want. But I'll tell you though, if you do enter the bank, just be visible. I said, be visible? What does that even mean? He's like, look, you've got nothing to lose. Take the job. It's 8 months. If you don't like it, you leave. You've got an option. And to be very fair, I really didn't, because my brother just said, you're not coming. You're staying there, or take the job and be visible. I said, okay. That's how I took the job. And I reported at Lusaka Main Branch on the 13th of April, 11th of April in 2011. 13th of April, yeah. So I think 11th April, I can't remember now. But then there's 3 of us that joined the bank at the time. And, we were like rookies. We entered there. Suddenly, Lusaka Main Branch felt like a big building.
You felt shrinked.
It was like, what? Because everyone's doing their job. They're not really going to invest their time in you, the newbie, right? Except the people who've hired you. And when we got in there, we met the service manager and we met the sales manager. Like, I've been in the bank 21 years. Hey, and I was like, we didn't say anything with my friend in Kando. We were just quiet, but we both thought it. I thought, 21 years, but you're in service only. You're just, you're the service manager, 21 years, I mean, I don't blame people. I guess people have a different drive along what they want to do. But in my mind, I couldn't imagine doing that.
For 21 years.
For 21, well, to get to that point and have been in the bank 21 years, right? And we've got fantastic role models to look up to who've been in the bank for that long, but CEOs, right? So I joined the bank and my role was they called it a hybrid teller. I was meant to sell, to do service, and also to be at the counter, be able to do all of that. So, so I joined the bank in 2011 and it was at the counter and, I had to do sales and service. It was very different for me. I joined the bulk center. All right, that was my first counter experience. I had never seen so much money in my life. I'm not very tall, so I could count money. That's my height.
Wow.
Yeah. I had never seen so much money in my life, let alone counted it. All right. And it was one of the most, it was a very different experience. But what that did was, in the branch, I always say, once you go through the branch, you actually understand the customer. It's different from where I am now. But I went through the branch and I was at the counter and I met different people at the counter. I met different organizations at the counter. So we used to count money. I didn't ever have any bright clothing in my wardrobe because there would be dust from money, on your body. But people in the branch, there's a lot of teamwork. You've got no choice. You work as a team. There's a lot of teamwork in the branch. But also you understand banking as we know it, right? Where I sit now is a bit different, it's more strategy. But when you're in the branch, you face the customer. Yeah. You face teams, you pass the transactions, you do all of that. So I had that. And I stayed in the branch for my first 8 months. And I always say, I got moved from the bulk center to the front, the main hall, which felt like a promotion in my head because the bulk center was at the back.
Yeah, no one sees you there.
No one sees you there, apart from the people who come to deposit the bulk cash. So I moved to the front of the banking hall. And I remember how I moved there was because we had signed up a really big employee banking deal with one of the defense wings. So they were coming to the bank to draw money, the recruits. I have never seen so many people in my life in a bank. And they all arrived at one time and we had to serve them. And I remember praying that day, please, dear Jesus, let me just balance because this is my first day on the job in the front. And it worked out. And that's how I never went back to the bulk center. I stayed in the front. But remember a thing I told you about attitude. So it's what makes the difference, right? So I remember at the time, the bank used to have what they called the SCB way. basically where it's just how we operate, right? How we serve customers and all of that. So
it's like your culture, your ethos.
yes, the SCB way. So it was like a hot tick for you as a teller. Are you friendly? Are you smiling? Are you fast? Are you efficient? And one of the biggest things I like to do, and I say I like to do, is I smile. I mean, it costs nothing. I always tell my sisters this. I have my younger sister. I always tell her, I'm like, just smile. It costs nothing, actually. And that's what I did. I was just very friendly, and I would smile a lot. Maybe that's why I smile a lot. It was my job. No, but I did. Actually, I generally like to be happy. All right. And I'm going to write about that as part of my blog for 2023. But yeah, so I would just smile and be very friendly. And, but trust me, on a tough day when I'm like, I really don't want to be doing this job, you smile at the customer and welcome them and serve them and all of that. So, but what that did was, I remember at the time when I joined the bank, we had like a head of branches. I'd never met him. I used to hear about him. Same with our CEO now. At that time, he was in retail. I used to hear about him. I didn't know who he was. But that's sometimes how the branch can be. You're not really open to what else is happening in the whole bank. There. Yeah. So one day, this head of branches walks into the branch. And like, that's, the head of branches. I'm like, okay. I just finished. It was a Saturday. I just finished doing what I was doing. I balanced. I walked up to him. I said, hi, my name's Kyembe. You don't know me. I'm new. But this is what I can do. I can do sales. I can do marketing. I can do PR. So I'd love an opportunity to try. And he goes, oh, do you know, at the time there was like different heads of marketing and corporate affairs. Yeah. Do you know these people? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, I'll have a chat with them. And maybe you can have a chance to go with, they used to call it the first hand day. Yeah. You can have a chance to go do a first hand day. And he did talk to them. And I was invited to go, but couldn't go at the time because the branch was busy. So I didn't, at my first attempt, can you imagine at being in this job I really wanted to do. But I always told myself, that's the space I want to be in. So one thing I want to say, just if I pause there for a second, is don't be apologetic about what you want. Don't be. Like, and if I can stretch a little bit more, don't be apologetic about who you are, about what you want, all right? So, and I'll qualify that by saying, as I progressed in the bank, as you can tell, I'm very bubbly. I talk a lot, and for a long time, I was made to feel like that's a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me jump quite quickly to the space when this happened. So I went through the branch, and there's this gentleman who used to come to my counter all the time. He was a member of staff. I didn't know who he was. All I knew is he's a member of staff. And everyone would greet him when he comes into the branch. He'd come to my counter, and he would make mistakes on his slip. And I'm just like, why can't you just write properly? Just write it, But that's in my head. But I'm smiling when talking to him. Like, oh, how are you? Blah, blah. He goes, oh, what have you studied? So I tell him, I'm at the counter, I've got a BBA. I'm talking to him. Oh, really? Yeah, okay. Have you heard about the graduate program? I said, no. I said, yeah, I have. But, it used to feel like, when the graduates walk in, the people in the graduate program felt like galacticals. They're like, these are super sharp kids. Like, yeah. Like how they get A-list. There. A-list, exactly. So I'm like, yeah, I have. He's like, you should try it. I said, me? Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. And for 2 weeks, I didn't do it. I met him again. Did you do it? I said, no. He goes, the window is closing. So I thought, well, why not? What do I have to lose anyway? I have a job.
Yeah, and right there, when you say what do you have to lose, I've got a friend of mine who always tells me, Sui, go for it. What do you have to lose? Worst case scenario is
you don't get
changes.
it. Nothing changes.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's worst case scenario. Nothing changes.
So I said, you know what? Why not? Plus, this job is painful for me at this stage. Why not? I have a job. It's paying the bills. But why not? So I had no laptop. I had no personal internet connection, whatever. So I used to stop at arcades, drop off my bus, go to arcades, and do the tests at Microlink. There was an internet cafe there called Microlink. So yeah, that's what I did. I would do my tests at Microlink. And so no one in Zambia knows who you are because it's all done on a portal. until like when you finish the first 3 or 4 tests, then you get a call from somebody from the learning team. At the time, it was either UK or Singapore. I got a call from someone in Singapore saying, oh, you've made it this far, so you've got an interview. I said, okay. This is at the same time as my teller job. So I had to now tell my boss the truth. Like, oh, you know what? I'm actually doing this. I applied. So I need time in the morning to do this interview. So I did that interview, and then that interview determines whether you progress or not. And I did. That was the first time I received a call from HR in country saying, oh, we've seen you gone this far. You need to come in for another interview. So I did that interview, and my last interview was with Sunny. At the time, he was the head of retail, or it was called consumer banking. And again, had to tell my boss the truth. And then, oh, I have to go to North End because I have an interview with Sunny. You know, it was very hush-hush up to this point. And maybe, you know, now that I think about it, I really told no one. I told no one in the bank I was doing it except for one of the people who had been on the program, because I said, I need your help. I don't know how to go about this. So I went and I did that, and they told us Sunny was like, okay, you wait to hear from us. I said, okay. At the same time, I had been called for I didn't apply for this one. I was called to interview for a PA role, another PA role. I didn't get it, and I was so bummed out. I'm like, wow, I'm going to be in this branch forever, you know.
21 years.
It's now in my face.
21 years is knocking.
21 years is knocking. So I was so sad that day, you know, I didn't get the job. I'm like, okay, anyway. Go back on my job, smile and wave at the clients. Hello, how are you serving them? It had been 7 days since I had met Sunny. I hadn't heard anything. I'm like, you know, let me just check, you know, this portal. Because they would always communicate on the portal.
Yeah.
And I logged onto the portal, and all it said was, congratulations, you have met. Oh my gosh, Suri, like I almost threw the money. Like, what? And I told the client, she could tell, I'm like, oh my goodness. She's like, what, are you okay? I'm like, I have received the best news ever. She goes, really? I actually told a total stranger. I'm like, oh my gosh.
She had no idea what the graduate program was.
Yeah, she had no idea. And that's actually how I went onto the graduate program. And that was, I think, what changed the course of my...
I think they're congratulating you for another graduate program.
It changed the course of my career, my progression in the bank, because that program teaches you to think very differently. Remember the thing I told you about, every experience I've had has been something that adds to something. So my experience in the branch, being able to take on a new challenge, to think on my feet, I learned that from previous jobs. Tough bosses, I learned that from previous jobs. You know what I mean? When I went onto the graduate program, having been through the branch, sometimes when you're in the graduate program, they do have a round that you do in the branches, but you have a very different understanding once you've been through a retail branch. And it made me think differently about a lot of what we used to do. So I went into the graduate program, and my personality, of course, because now I have exposure, right? I have exposure to different people. Remember that thing a friend of mine said, be visible. Very important. And be visible for the right reasons. Don't be visible for, because, you're the one who's always in the wrong, but be visible because you are doing the right thing, or, you are pushing the right heights.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I always put my hand up. Do you need to, when I do this, I'd put my hand up. So because of my personality sometimes and my love for marketing or communications, I remember there was one senior person in the bank, she's not there anymore, who literally said, she can't be in my department. It was a business department. She can't be in my department. She's, it's not jokes. It's not a place for jokes. We need people who work. I was like, what? Really? That was very disturbing for me. Again, took me back to the place where I was thinking, am I not enough? And, but I think that because of that, it made me have the drive to say, don't doubt yourself. Don't ever try to change yourself because someone else thinks what you are is not what what you should be, or what you are is not what they are or what they want to be. So that period in my career, I'll call it, was a test of authenticity for me, a big test of authenticity, because it felt like I wasn't smart enough. Because why would you think I can't be in your department? You know what I mean? Besides, there's nothing wrong if and I'm gonna say this to people, because sometimes when you're a graduate or whatever, you want to, you don't have to know everything. Let me put it that way. Yeah. You don't have to know everything. Be good at what you do, and find people who are good at what they do to help you be good at what you can't do.
Point.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't understand the value. Now, when I'm telling you network, now it made sense. In my graduate team, and believe it or not, we're still very close. The team that we did the graduate program with, we each had different strengths, and it would be unfair for me to point at one of my teammates and say, well, you can't, you have stage fright. Let me get into it. You have stage fright, so you shouldn't speak. You get my point?
Yeah.
Whereas that person is completely analytical. They will give you the numbers and say, this one. So within ourselves, we understood our strengths. So it was quite disappointing to actually to see that, because of my strength at the time, that became like almost like a weakness. It isn't. You know what I mean? It's just, that's your strength. And play to your strength. Who says you shouldn't? You know what I mean? Play to your strength. And so for a while, it felt like, I'm not good enough for this, for the business. Eventually got a job in one of the business units. It was in employee banking. It was a relationship manager job. And that's when I realized I don't like sales. No, I have complete respect for people in sales. I am telling you this. I don't like sales. I actually don't like it. And it was my job. It was my actual job. But guess what? Within the sales team, I found people who love sales. Are you getting what I'm trying to tell you? Like, up to this day, I still get along with him. I've never met anyone who loves sales like this gentleman at the bank called Pius. I've never met anyone who speaks so passionately about selling. I asked him and said, what do you take? I literally asked him. And I could not sell, right? Well, I could sell, but my strength was I talk.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I talk, I interact with people, I engage people. But I'm not the one you're going to find with a loan form, all right? And I'm not even I'll probably do the wrong thing, in that thing. Yeah. But what I did was play to my strength. Can I engage people? Yes. Can I meet someone senior without having an issue? Yes. Can I take in a sales team? Yes. I'll take the people who can sell with me on the job, and they would do the sales. I would engage, right? And I did that for 1.5 years, close to that, but it was not fulfilling. It was not fulfilling for me. And it was tough because the truth is that how many other banks are selling the same product? Yeah. What's different about what you're doing? And so you had to meet your numbers. And as I said, I have complete respect for people who do sales. Honestly speaking, it's tough.
Yeah, I can relate to that because
it's tough. It's really tough.
But I want to take you back to something. From what I got from the story that you've been telling, you sort of, I don't want to use the word lucky, but you sort of had these people in the bank, that was sort of like, lifting you up. Yeah. Or, there's this, go apply for the graduate program. Or you ask permission from a boss to go to North End and they grant you and whatnot. There are some people, Kyembe, who even just the idea of telling your boss you're going for an interview or there's an opportunity, they can never. You get a point.
Yeah,
they want to stifle you. They want to stifle you. They want to keep you there. They don't want you to grow and whatnot. How can someone navigate such kind of work environment?
Can I tell you something? Trust me, I was scared to tell my boss that I was going, but
and for you, it was within the same.
Can you just imagine? So I was even going to run. They were going to know. You know what I mean? They were going to know anyway. I couldn't have. Can you imagine saying something like, "Oh, I'm sick, but you're going for an interview,"
and on the panel,
in the same bank? Yeah. No, I'll tell you something that has worked for me, even to this day with my current boss, and I have a fantastic boss. I'll tell you. You have to build goodwill throughout your career. That's just a fact. Having this whole, I am who I am, I don't care, accept me the way I am, it sounds great when you say it, but then work for the workplace. Okay. Now, let me elaborate. When I say build goodwill, I'm not saying I don't want to use a derogatory term, but I'm not saying be a suck up. No. Yeah. What I'm saying is be great at what you do. Be really good at what you do. That actually people begin to see your value without even you having to demand it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me explain. So remember I told you in the branch, I was a team player. The thing that people don't want to put up their hand for, I would, right? We need to organize this for the branch. Who can do it? I would put up my hand. I remember this one time, our branch manager at the time was very quiet. She was a very quiet lady. And every time to go into the bulk center, I would have to walk past her. And how was I going to walk past her without greeting her? So I'd greet her. Morning, how are you? Morning, how are you? I'd greet her every time. And in the end, I created a kind of rapport with her. People were not, she's, and not that she was unfriendly, no, she's just a very different personality.
Yeah, just work people, just work.
Yeah, she's a very different, no, but interestingly, you know, sometimes I'll chat with her and I'll be like, oh, she smiles, oh my goodness. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think you have to build enough goodwill along your career to be able to call in something like that. All right. Are there tough moments? Yes. There are people who are just tough bosses. Yes, they are. And sometimes in those moments, you have to take matters into your own hands. And I was going to tell you about that just as I was getting around this space around my job in the relationship manager space. I really was not fulfilled. But I had been available to do a whole lot more outside of my role alone, right? If I was called in MD's office to help, I'd go. If I was called in the retail office to help, I'd go. But what that also meant, and what the graduate program also did, is remember, because you do those rounds, you're exposed to senior leaders. So I remember coming back on a trip once with one of the senior leaders, and he asked me about me. And I'll tell you, I was dreading this trip because I was bumped out of a car to say, you're going to go into that car? And I was like, what am I going to talk about this man for a whole 2 hours from Mazabuka to Lusaka?
That's end up telling like, secrets.
What? No, like, honestly, I was even upset. I'm like, oh, so you guys can move me out of the car. We came in our team car to make me drive with the boss so that I can just be quiet the whole drive. It was not a quiet ride. Actually, he engaged me. He said, so what do you like to do? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your background. You can imagine someone I reported to for some time, but didn't know me to that extent. So I told him my background. Oh, really? I was like, so you should think about corporate affairs. I'm like, actually, I say it in my every assessment. I actually mentioned it to my boss. Say, this is something I want to do. And he goes, oh, okay. And then it so happened, when I say build goodwill, it so happened that, because of the graduate program, the CEO we had at the time believed you are in leadership, essentially. So there's a leadership program at the bank called the Zambia Leadership Team, and he invited us. We were special invites by the CEO. Felt really important because you had to be selected to be on the team, right? So I remember we had to go to ZLT. There was a meeting. It was at a hotel, and I asked for a ride. It was the senior leader. I said, can I have a ride to the hotel? I don't have a ride to ZLT. He's like, sure. Whilst we're on the ride, he says, you know what, Kyembe? The head of corporate affairs, she's put me up to be on the program. And me, I can't speak to people. I cannot be the one to open up and I crack a joke like you. I can't be the one. Can you do it for me? So remember the thing I was telling you about, do not be apologetic about who you are. In that one moment, this is someone who's really senior, excellent. He was like the head of, at the time, was it Global Markets of Wealth Management? I can't remember. But you can imagine, he's just like, no, I can't speak on stage like you do. Can you do it? But remember, I was made to feel terrible about that ability, right? I said, okay, sure, no problem. I can do it. So on the way to this meeting, I'm starting to think, how am I going to open? It's a leadership team, so it's quite senior people there. But I did. But little did I know that the person whose job I took over from was leaving the bank. I didn't know. So I just did the whole thing. And when I finished, then some girl walked up to me and said, "Do you know that she's leaving the bank?" I said, "No." They were like, "We thought you knew, that's why you did this." I'm like, "No, I didn't know." So when I talk about building goodwill, in the process, you see, that's like someone sort of appreciates your effort, your can-do attitude. When I think about not being able, and I look back at this, not being able to tell my boss I'm going for an interview. I had been there before, actually. I can tell you about it. Remember, I told you I went for the audition for the TV show. I didn't tell my boss I went for that. I just went on a break. I'm taking my break now, and I went on this break. And then when I was asked to wait, I'm like, I'm running out of time. I've only got half an hour on this break to do this. So I've been there before, right? But I didn't have the goodwill. I didn't have that ability to say, I actually am trying to do this. So can I have this time? I could not. I'd have lost my job. That's the honest truth. That's just the honest truth. Because even when I got the role, and this role was just once a week, I was told I had to choose one. I obviously chose the one that took me to school, right? But that's the thing. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. Now, I'm saying this because remember I told you about that ride I had to take back now with this boss who didn't know what I could do. Yeah. So the opportunity now comes up, and there's an opportunity to take on this role I have for a short term. But there was a lot of pressure in the sales space, right? To sell and meet your target. So it was one of those things, I really want to do this short-term assignment in corporate affairs, but is it physically possible to do because of what the demands of my team are at the time? No. And I remember talking to my line manager at the time. I said, "Can I do this?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can go for a week." I'm like, "A week? How's that going to help? How's that gonna grow me? Because this is something I really want to do." So when I saw that this was going to be a challenge, I literally grabbed it by the horns and I went and I talked to, remember that boss I had to ride back with for 2 hours? Yeah. And I said, "Hey, there's an opportunity that has come up and I really want to do it." He's like, "Oh, yes, it has. You should. That'd be perfect for you. You should go." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm having a tough time. I need your help to just make this happen, because on the one hand, I am part of a team. I'm still coming back to this team because it's a short-term assignment. Yeah. But I don't want to burn a village."
Yeah, I was about to say
You know what I mean?
that,
I don't want to burn a village. They're still my team, but I want to grow. You know what I mean? I want to grow. It took working double, honestly, to sort of cover up that space before I left it. I did get the opportunity to go. And I'll tell you, it was with the intent to come back. Because
you didn't see it coming for you.
No, I didn't. I just like, wow, I've been waiting for this opportunity to be in corporate affairs. I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to learn as much as I can so that should there ever be an opportunity, I'll be ready. And I think this is something that I've learned in my career in the bank. Whilst you can, learn. Learn as much as you can. Learn from people, learn from external sources, and the bank has a great platform. Learn from internal platforms. Learn from coaching, mentorship. Learn. Because when, I put it like this, if I had a formula. For me, growth is opportunity plus preparedness, if I can put it that way. So how prepared are you for when that opportunity comes? Because when it comes and you're not prepared, there is no growth and there is no next level, right? So I use that opportunity to learn as much as I can. Even if I'm not going anywhere, I'm still a teller, or I'm still an RM, or I'm still in, I just learn, so that when the opportunity comes, I'm ready for so when that opportunity comes and I'm ready, I will have to go a step higher. That's just how it is. That's growth. So in moments when I felt very stagnant in my roles, right? Any role, even perhaps when the one I'm in, is am I ready for that next step? Sometimes, I think what we expect is we have a qualification. Sometimes it is, have you grown? I call it horizontally, yeah, like that. Have you expanded your mind? Have you grown? Have you created the network? Have you had the learning experiences? Have you had the challenging experiences? So that there is such a wide base when the opportunity comes, Sui, you can actually spring from any point on that platform that you've been expanding to grow. So that's pretty much what happened. So when I moved into corporate affairs, I have had zero experience in writing press releases, nothing. Okay. But I told myself, this is an opportunity to grow. And I still do have an amazing, amazing boss. Like, I've never met anyone more patient than I'm not trying to say this because she might listen to this, but I always say I think I have the best boss in the bank. I always say that. So she was very patient. But I think something that works for my boss and I think maybe now may have rubbed off on me is, are you willing to learn? That's something I know. So I would sit with her every morning and say, can you teach me about this? And every hour each morning, she taught me something new. And the other thing she did do though, and I always laugh because that's very much like my boss. She would literally say, okay, there's this coming up and I think you should do it. I've never done it before. Nothing, zero, never ever done it before. But she knows you never done it before. She's gonna throw you into that deep end. But she's right there watching you.
And also talking about the whole thing. So would you say that your friend is your boss? Because for most people, again, that for many people causes a little bit of like blurred lines and whatnot.
Really?
Because for some people, it becomes... Okay, look, if the answer is yes, and you say you're friends with your boss, how do you maintain a professional relationship? Because for most people, chivalation now comes in.
Exactly.
And chivalation now is basically familiarity, I can show up late for work.
Contempt.
Yeah, I show up late for work because my boss is my friend. I know our personal issues. I know what and what, That's what I'm saying. How do you maintain a professional relationship? When you're friends and it gets personal, but how do you still get the work done? And even you, at your level, how do you still remain professional?
Yeah. So, you know what? I when you say friend, sometimes it can almost make it sound unprofessional, right? But I think the professional nature of our interaction on our job and in our job specifically, it does require friendliness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It does require friendliness. So she has created a very free environment, if I can call it that, right? But that's not to say that, you overstep. I think the culture at the bank just generally is first name basis. You come to the bank, you've seen it sometimes. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or you're whoever. It's a first name basis, right? So, but I think for me, my relationship with my line manager is she has created a very free environment, a very open environment, right?
That's what I'm saying. That open environment. How do you, as the subordinate, avoid like taking advantage, or you get too comfortable with that free environment your boss has created? Because I understand
it's very possible. You're right.
That's why some supervisors don't do that. You get a point, eh?
No,
because they're scared that you...
Chibels. I call it chibels.
Chibelation now in the workplace,
I think what has worked for me is to remember why I'm there. You know what I mean? One thing for me that has worked with my line manager is honesty and professionalism. Whilst the environment is very open, she is very clear with us on our deliverables, and we are a team that understands that. All right. So for me, there's no way I'm not performing Suya and I'm going to expect my boss to dance around and, oh, she's my friend. No. I'll tell you when I've messed up, which I have done before, a number of times, she would tell me, actually. But you know what makes the difference is she still maintains respect. I think that's the word I wanted to use.
Yeah.
She is my line manager, but she still handles me with she doesn't talk down. Sometimes that's a mistake I think I find some line managers make. So I'm more senior does not mean you can talk down at me. You know what I mean? My line manager has corrected me several times, trust me, and she's never had to raise her voice. Ever, I can tell you. Never, ever. There's never been a whole shout down, talk down, never. But she can be very firm. And I've learned that from her. You see, managing people does not mean that you use weight. And I say weight, I mean weight of your role or your title. Managing people needs tact. It needs, and I think I've learned from that because I don't have anyone reporting to me, but I have project teams that I do constitute when I'm running projects for the bank. So I then essentially look after a team of people.
Yeah.
And I've learned from her. I always say, she can be telling you something really tough for you to hear, but she's going to tell you. She's not going to shy away from it, but she's going to tell it to you where you don't feel like, how could she talk to me like that? It's a culture issue, maybe. I think that you find people like that. And I mean people like that, it's both ends. Huh? I mean the subordinate who's now just for Chibels or Chibeleshi, and the line manager who uses weight as opposed to tact to dealing with people. For me, with my line manager, interestingly, believe it or not, I think I've applied for a couple of jobs under her. And I'll tell her, hey, you know, I've got an interview because I'm applying for this job. And she'll be like, oh gosh, it's great for you. I think you'd be great for it, but I will miss you if you go. You know what I mean? Like we have very open conversations. But then also very open conversations around my growth. She's big on growth and I'm big on growth. I'll tell you, she took a chance on me. And I always say sometimes it just takes someone taking a chance on you. Like I said, I went to corporate affairs for a short stint, right? But I sat there for 3 months and then the job role opened up now. And trust me, I didn't automatically get it. There was interviews. You know, I would see people coming for the interviews and I'm like, oh, I remember seeing her at Zen. Wow, oh my gosh, she's here.
Yeah.
I was so threatened. I was like proper threatened by this interview process because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I'll get it. But I think that's someone taking a chance on you just based on how you perform or how. Remember that thing I said, when you're given the opportunity to work, do it to the most. Like do it like you're keeping this job. You know, I worked in those 3 months like I had been in the corporate affairs space wherever I was learning, but I owned that space. Like, you know what, I could do this job.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was in terms of there are people who are exposed to others that can move them from where they are to the job they want. And I always give these examples. Those tellers in ShopRite, Pick and Pay, you know, those ladies who sit at the airport getting tickets, the people they are exposed to.
Yeah.
Like the CEOs there. If you want to go in politics, there's a politician that will pass through
Exactly.
the TU. Like everyone from the lowest to the highest in society,
topmost.
they interact with them, you know? And for me, I always tell people, look, those are not jobs for like 10 years, no. That's an in-transit job, like on my way to where I want to actually be.
Yeah.
So now, people who are in those kinds of jobs, how can you leverage those relationships? Because if someone is buying groceries, for example, I've got like 5 minutes with them at most, depending on the number of groceries or trolleys that they have. But just buying a drink or not is like 1 minute, 2 minutes. In that, how do I make an impact? That short term. And also, by extension, in an organization, like you say, you're in a bank, I'm in the lift with the CEO. What am I going to say to him, you know?
You know, have you ever, I'm sure you have, if you heard about the elevator pitch.
Yes.
It always has to be ready. That's just the truth. Remember I told you about when I was like, oh, that's the head of branches. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go speak to him. you have to be ready. You have to be like, hi, my name is so and so, and this is what I can do. It's different in a I want to say controlled environment like a brand. It's very different when you're at the counter, right? In ShopRite or wherever. But it is very important to be very clear. Again, remember, you're almost bordering on annoying. If you're at the counter at ShopRite and every client that's coming like, oh, I can do blah, 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 blah. You can't.
Because the guy in the queue goes like the guy who just went
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But if I use my experience, and I can't really speak in the retail space like the counter, but remember, for me, a big shifter for me is attitude. I lose my mind, Sui, when I get to the counter. I was just telling a friend of mine, I was registering for a gym session, and the girls who were at the counter, every time gentlemen came to the counter, it was all smiles. How are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm standing there, I'm trying to register. Every time she'd come to me, very distracted. And I was counting to 10 in my head. I was like, oh, this is going to go badly if she keeps on doing this. Yeah. So I wrote my name down. So she's talking to me and she hands me a piece of paper. I don't have a paper. She's like, what's your name? And then she starts talking to her people. I write my name. And something in that moment told me, spell it for her. And I didn't. And she goes and she writes the wrong thing. My wrong name. Written on paper, but she writes it wrong in the system. Because when I try to log in, it's different. And I said, you spelled my name wrong. Do you know what she said to me? It's how you wrote it. I was like, wow. Oh my God. Like, oh my God. Are you serious? Right now? She didn't give me a paper. You see? What letter is this? I said, that's S, and that's A, and that's N. It looks like W. How? In which world? I mean, how? You know what I mean? But every time, because we went to the gym, so there's lots of men going in and out. Every time men came, she'd literally put me on hold and start talking to them. And I had to count to 10 each time. I'm like, it's my first time at the gym. It's going to be bad if I just have a moment with her. And she eventually did the right thing. But I thought to myself, like, wow, do you know if I didn't really want to go to the gym, I'd have walked away just there. I'd have actually said, this is just nonsense. I'm not going to stay around for this when I leave. Yeah. Because she gave me a terrible experience. So what am I trying to say? So every time you interact with people, it is not just a meeting, it's an experience. And how I experience you, no matter what you say to me, is what's going to remain in my mind. So every time people interact with you at any given moment, it is not just a meeting, it's an experience. Because do you remember, I bet you will remember the first time you drank chloroquine. Do you know what I mean? That taste, you won't forget it. Even if chloroquine makes you get well from malaria, you will remember that when I drink chloroquine, it's bitter. So, and actually, there's now alternatives. There's Arinet, there's all those other ones that came after because, But that's exactly how people move on from your experience, actually. So your attitude, when people meet you, is going to determine their experience of you. So make that pleasant. Make that memorable. I can't say I can give you my elevator pitch and say that's what works for everybody. But remember, when someone meets you, it's their experience of you. That's all they're going to remember. And how do you want that to feel? How do you want that to remain in people's minds? That's how I work now. Every time I'm given a task, whether I perform it or not, is an experience for the next person. They'll be like, should we even give her the next task now? Because, what she did the last time. And it happens, right? Even now, there are times when I've taken on too much and I'm like, why did I take on so much? Because my own experience and experience that people have of me in that space won't be great. So my advice to people who are at counters or who are in a fast-moving space or who have the ability, to meet very influential people in society is, what is their experience of you when they meet you for the first time or the second time? What is their experience? Not what is their, what is that moment they meet you? Are you looking great? Are you smelling great? Yeah, but what is the memorable experience they have with you? So if you want that to be great, you're not going to be like, Yeah, for now, you know what I mean? No, you're gonna make sure.
But then also, having worked with different people in different environments, how do you manage people? By manage, I'm not meaning how do you supervise them, but how do you, because we come from different homes, different environments, people have got different experiences, different personal issues and whatnot. And all of that now comes and meets in the organization.
Yes. Can I tell you something? This is not even something I learned from managing people. It's something I learned from managing myself. It is to be kind. I read somewhere and it says kindness is the little rent we pay for our existence on this planet. So I'm paraphrasing, but something like that. Just be kind. Just be kind. Because that gives you enough patience. Until I had my own experiences where I wished people would be kind, I may have even been a little bit impatient. But I think when I've had to be kind to myself first, it gives me a bit more time to be kind to people. I remember there was one incident. I work with this guy all the time, really good buddy of mine. But in that meeting, he went off on me. I was like, what just happened? I thought you're my friend. Why would you speak to me like this in a meeting? And I left the meeting and I was livid. I'm like, you know what? When this goes wrong, all the best, because I won't be there. I'm trying to tell you in a meeting, this was going to happen. But as the day progressed, I said, but that's not how that guy is. You know what? He's never spoken to me like that before. It's not easy to process things though. I'm telling you, my immediate reaction was, I'm upset right back. But as the day progressed, I sent him a WhatsApp. I said, hey, are you okay? Is everything fine? You didn't seem like yourself today. And then he went on to say, actually, it's a bit tough at home. This is what's happening. We have a parent that's got cancer. You know what I mean? In that moment, you experience a human being. So I think what has gotten me through the organization is just be kind. Just be kind. And you will never be quoted to have said the wrong thing when you're kind. No, you won't also do the wrong thing to somebody else and when you're kind. I'm not saying be complacent, right? I'm not saying let people walk all over you. But I think every time you interact with a colleague, remember that they're also human. They're just Montufie. If I can say it in Bemba and make it hit home.
Yeah, and talking about Montufie, you're not just, like a career person, but you're also a mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this rise from emceeing to security to, TV to the bank and now rising through the rank and file of the bank. At some point, you had to still raise a family. How did you balance it too? Especially seeing that you're a woman, because they say men have it easier. A man won't have a baby, and then 4 months leave, and then what?
Yeah.
You find in that 4 months leave, the opportunity you are gunning for, someone has gotten.
No, it's a real issue. It is a real issue, Sui. Do you know? And I'm gonna maybe say something so unpopular, but I'm okay to say it. All right, is how they say, can women have it all? I want to change that question and say, can anyone have it all? The correct answer is not all at the same time. That makes sense? For me anyway, I'm going to say. Something waits at a given time. That's the honest truth. Firstly, I have to say I have a fantastic support system. A great support system. My family is awesome. But raising children and still trying to grow in your career is tough. It's not easy. I don't know if I've met anyone who's trying to rise in their career and this is a stroll in the park. But one of the things I remember a mentor of mine told me, every time I'm like, my helper, she'd be like, you need to make sure you fix that. You need to make sure you fix that, because it is your helper is your support system as well, right? My children's nanny is a part of. She's part of my family. Literally, she's my family, because without her, I can't be excellent at work thinking about have I packed the kids' lunch boxes? Oh my gosh, are they staying today? You know, are they, you need an excellent support system. It's been hard. And there are moments when I have mom guilt. There are moments when I'm just like, am I really being a great mom? Right. But having a support system is really important. And also having this separation. And this is the truth. In moments when I've tried to juggle, I'm being a fantastic mom and I'm being a fantastic corporate affairs manager, it's, you're essentially giving everything 50-50, 20-80, 60-40. You're not, you know what I mean? Yeah. But in moments when I say, this is time for work, it is work. It is work. I must deliver 100%, 150% if I need to. When it's time to be mom, I am going to be mom. I'm going to be 100% mom. I will smother those kids. They will be tired of me, literally. So for me, I actually don't think that any mother or any parent, even a father, to be honest, can say they juggle all of this at once. I really do think something does have to wait. Something does give. Something does give. I remember before I had kids, I was in a meeting with women and we asked a senior leader, they're like, so how do you, this exact question you asked me, she goes, they asked her, how do you manage it? How do you manage your boys and, and your daughter and all of that? So she said, she goes, I think she was our CIO at the time. She goes, I have an insanely busy job. It's really busy, very involving. But when it's time for me to be mom, I do stuff with my kids that is so memorable that it almost carries them until my next mom moment. And look, and let me be very clear about this. It's not to say you're not parenting every day. You are. There's school, there's homework, there's school run, there's interactions, there's life lessons as you keep going. But remember, even with work, there's what you call BAU. There's your BAU, but there's moments when you must focus to get the one thing done. And sometimes it's like that. That's me anyway with my kids. I will make sure the moments when it's their time, it is their time. It is time I spend with them. And it could even be time I spend with them doing what they want to do, right? It could be time I spend with them doing something they didn't expect to do. So, and sometimes it's time I spend with them with my family. So it's not, to be very honest, it's not something I've ever managed to do by myself. I have a great support system. I'm kinder to myself. Before I had kids, let me tell you, I always laugh about this with my sisters because I used to sing in the choir and the moms with the kids used to sit at the back of the church. And sometimes they'd be outside the church, like in the foyer, feeding the kids. And I'd be like, I'd be like, why do they even come to church? They're just sitting. They're just sitting in the corridor, just sitting there with their babies. Then I had my own. And I couldn't sit in front of the church. And I had to sit at the back of the church. And I had to walk out because my baby is tantruming. You know what I mean? And I guess sometimes, and being very honest, sometimes experiences in life teach you to actually behave. if I can be very honest. And having my first baby taught me to be very patient with myself. Because sometimes people want to paint on social media. People want to paint this whole picture that isn't there. And I don't judge people for that. Look, if that works for you, fantastic. You know what I mean? But just stay in your lane. Just be your most authentic self. And the world will accept that.
Great.
Yeah.
And then also, the other thing is, like, do you ever find yourself taking your work at home?
Yes.
I feel guilty.
I can tell you about that. Yes, I do take work home. Remember at some point we were working from home, but yeah, I do take work home. Because sometimes it's that juggling I'm telling you about. Sometimes it is am I going to stay in the office an extra hour, or it's an hour and a half before bedtime. I need to see my kids before they get into bed. I can continue this when it's done. Is that every day? No. It can't be. It's not sustainable.
When you look back at your career, what do you think you would have wanted to do differently?
What have I done differently?
What would you have wanted to do differently?
I think I'll tell you. I think I wish I learned the value of authenticity really quickly. I also wish I learned the value of network very quickly, because I think that really grew a bit more for me when I then progressed in my career. But I'll go back to the value of authenticity, because when you're younger, one of the things you struggle with is identity, right? It is identity. It is being sure of yourself, right? And sometimes needing affirmation. So if I look back, one of the things I would have done differently is I wish I knew the value or understood the value of my authenticity a whole lot earlier than I did. Something else I would have done differently. Let me think. I can't really. I think being able to speak up. Sometimes I think. Remember the thing I told you about, you can be kind, but don't be complacent. Don't let people walk all over you. I think sometimes being kind at some stages would have led to a place where people think they can just say anything to you. I'm not saying be rude, but be able to stand up for yourself, right? I think I wish I could have done that a bit more. But if I really look back, again, if I look at this point I just said now, somehow I think it also just teaches you stakeholder management. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. Actually, sometimes you don't have to say anything, and that's enough. That's enough to take you on to the next. Sometimes just focus, because think about it. If I take you back to the lady who made it look like my skill or my talent was a joke, it could have affected my performance in my next job. Or even now, but the moment I accepted that, you know what, this is actually, when people say, what do you do? I talk for a living. No, I'm kidding. I don't talk. I mean, I do. I've learned quite a bit in my job, aside from having to speak on behalf of the bank, but also grow in terms of understanding new areas of interest I never thought I could have. I'll give you an example. All of these experiences I've talked about, and maybe now I'm now thinking, to be honest, the only thing I would have wanted to have done is I wish I knew my authenticity. I understood the value of authenticity, because all of that Suilanji has put me at a place where every time I can bring my true self to anything that I do, and that's my passion, my humor, my energy, and sometimes how much I talk. It yields the most fulfilling experiences for me. 2022, I told myself I want to join a board. I've not been on a board. I have no idea how a board would work. And I kept saying to myself, who can I speak to? Who can tell me about how to be on a board? Like, how do I join a board? I really want to be on a board, because that was like my next growth space. No one told me about how to be on a board, see. No one. Although I listed the people I thought would help me. Do you know what happened? Just based on, I talk quite a bit on social media. I post on LinkedIn. So I talk about what I'm doing. I talk about my job. I talk about something I'm doing, some activity we've done. Just based on what people saw of what I post about what I do. I was approached to be on a board. Very different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very different. And you can imagine, I'd have been out there searching.
For what?
For this opportunity. But in the moments that I've been my true authentic self, opportunity found me. And now, I mean, I'm really excited because, I'm now on the board of the Duke of Edinburgh Awards for Zambia. And never been on a board, but I'm excited about it because it's a new learning experience. So if I really look back, I just wish I understood the value of being authentic, the value of authenticity a whole lot earlier in my career. I think I don't know, maybe I'd be somewhere else.
Yeah. And you see what you just said, it's that thing they say
Yeah.
the universe then aligns, with who you truly are.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to be something else,
Yeah.
like you attract something which is not actually for you because it's responding to the fake you're putting out there.
Can you imagine?
You get the point, yeah.
Can you just imagine that? Yeah.
And then also there was a conversation we had some time back about networking. That thing you told me where you draw yourself in the middle.
Yes.
And then talk me through that.
Oh my gosh, we should talk about that. So I remember this was actually in a chat with one of our former CEOs. She said, draw a circle of you, and that circle in the middle is you, and then draw a line to where you want to be. So I did that, which was in this job, by the way. Back then, I wasn't in this job. So I have to draw a new circle.
Yeah.
So I wasn't in this job. So draw a circle to where you want to be. And then she said, do you know everybody around you who can get you to this space you want to be? And in that moment, I was like, I never thought about that. So you're just basically saying, I want to be in corporate affairs. Yeah, but do you even know who the head of corporate affairs is? Do you know the corporate affairs manager? Do you know anyone else who's doing corporate affairs? Do you know what growth you need? You know what I mean? So she literally said, draw it. I want you to draw lines to different people who you think can get you to this space you want to be. And so I have used that consistently. Every time I'm in a place where, what is my next growth space? Do I know anyone who's going to get me there? And when I say that, it's not on it is, is it someone who has information you need? Is it someone who is who's more experienced than you are that you can learn from? Is there someone who is the decision maker and they don't know about you? Because the truth is they need to know who you are, right? Is there someone who is going to point out to you to say, yeah, Kyembe, one of your improvement areas is you need to be able to deliver like this, or you need to manage your time like this. In your network of people, are there people who can take you to that space? Sometimes it is people. Do you know people who will talk for you in a room you're not in to get you to that space? And now there's a word for it. Back then, I guess there was no word for it, but now there's a word, and I think we chat about a sponsor. Do you have a sponsor? There's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. A sponsor is someone who is going to speak for you in a room where you're not. And for someone to be able to sponsor you, it's like putting your money where your mouth is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is, I'm not going to say to somebody, hey, do you want to do a great podcast? Go to Sui, if I don't think it's a great podcast, right?
Yeah.
So you're not even there in the room. But the moment I'm going to be out there telling someone, oh, you know what? Actually, you should think about having a chat with Sui because he does this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not me putting out lies. So to get a sponsor, to have a sponsor, remember, it's part of the goodwill, but it's also part of your integrity. If someone's putting money on you, inverted commas, putting money on you, you better pay off.
Yeah, and talking about
Yeah.
paying off,
Yeah.
what I tell people is when it comes to sponsors and how it works is if I am in an influential position and I'm vouching for you,
Yeah.
Kyembe,
That's you
what
putting
that
yourself on the
basically
line.
means is I'm using my capital on Kyembe. If
I like
Kyembe
that.
gets the job,
Your capital,
okay?
exactly.
If Kyembe gets the
Equity.
job, if Kyembe gets a job and
Yeah.
underperforms in that job, she steals in that company, they'll say, muntu wa Sui mamona, the guy Sui brought.
That's
So
so.
for me to vouch for you, like you
Yeah.
said, it's money. I must be absolutely sure you do a very good job.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's capital. I've put it in
It's equity,
through
yeah.
you. And the yield or the return on investment is you do a good job so
Yeah,
well
yeah.
that the next person I recommend, they'll say, I
They're
go
like,
to Sui's.
you have to.
Sui's people, they're
They know
very
that-
good.
It's true.
And that's how it works.
It's very, very true. So remember, as I said, you need all these people, but you need that person that can speak for you in a room that you're not in. But for that person to be able to speak for you, they have to see the value.
Yeah.
I remember I asked someone to be my mentor once, and she was like, for you, absolutely. And I said to her, what do you mean for me? She goes, because there are people I just don't know.
Yeah, all the
That's
time.
like, no, I'm not. I was like, really? She's like, yeah. There are people I've
Because
told
also,
no.
also, what I've come to learn is based on who you are and the brand you've built around yourself, you're able to attract different people who want to be associated with you.
It's the goodwill.
The goodwill that you mentioned in the
Yes.
beginning. So they want to be associated with you. But then building it again is not easy.
No, but it's not easy. And that's why you can't be a substandard version of yourself because you can't maintain that.
Yeah.
You
Because
can't
even
be,
you forget what you're standing for because it's not who you are. You get the point.
exactly. It's not consistent. It's not consistent. So you can't be version 2 of yourself and gonna need an update. You're gonna need an upgrade.
Constantly updating.
You're gonna need
so
to.
the person who met you
not
2 years
an-
ago, meet you today, whole different person.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you in fact, when I say version 2, it might be like you're being taken from the original. No, you can't be, I don't know, a counterfeit version. Yeah, that's the word I want to use. You can't be a counterfeit version of yourself and hope to get a genuine return on what you're putting out there. It's not possible because it's not sustainable. But then it's not sustainable, but then it also won't even give you the satisfaction. Eventually, it's gonna show.
Yeah, the true you will show up.
The true you will show up. So me, I mean, I'm here. I talk, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't talk all the time. I don't talk anyhow. But I've learned to use this ability that I have at the right time. But then what it has also done is it's also given me the exposure to learn from people who actually talk for a living and do it even better. And I'm like, wow, I need to listen to that guy a bit more often. I need to listen to that lady a bit more often because you know what they've done is they now use that skill to build onto their next thing. So when I'm thinking about 2023 now, I'm just like, what's my next thing? What's the next thing I'm doing? You know, when I said 2022, I said I want to be on a board. And I kept saying it like, I'll tell myself, I want to be on a board. How do people join a board? I want to be on a board. I kept saying that. So 2023, let's see, I want to do something different.
I've got 2 more questions as we wrap up. Number 1, how do you build clarity? Because some people are at work. You've worked in this company 3-4 years. You have no idea where you want to go. Like, it's not clear what you want. Get the point, eh? When someone comes and says, oh, so where do you say from the company? You I mean, too, you know. There's no real clarity in terms of, okay, 6 months, what's my short-term goal? Medium-term goal? Longer-term goal? People don't have that.
That's actually very scary, to be very honest. Let me put it this way. Are there moments when you're like, gosh, what's my next step? Yes, we all have that. But that's okay for you to have so that you can sit back and get the clarity. I knew for a fact that I don't like sales. I don't even try. I don't try to apply for sales jobs. I stopped. Even if that's the job that was there, I just knew for a fact I'm not going to do it. All right? I also know I'm not going to be a doctor. Okay, I wanted to. In high school, actually, I took pure sciences because I thought I want to do medicine. And then I had an experience in a ward where I saw a drip pop out and I was like, that's not for me. Like, like it is not for me. Like, what was I thinking? Me, medicine. So what am I trying to say? It is, what is that space you thrive in the most? What is that space where I'm not winding you up so that you know that toy you wind up so it runs and then when the wind stops, it's wind it again. What is that place where no one has to do that for you? I enjoy my job. Actually, that no one has to tell me carry work home when I need to deliver. I just do it. So one of the things that gives clarity for me is what is your experience where you are at that point in time? Where is it that you thrive the most, okay? Where is it that when you're doing that one thing, it doesn't feel like you're working? It just feels like, you know what? I'm getting through my day. That's how I feel in my job, right? And I know I can't be in this job forever. So I'm asking myself, where is that next place that's going to keep me feeling like I'm not working, but I'm doing something I love to do? So where is the place where you thrive? And that means sometimes be very honest with yourself. That sometimes means I don't like my sales job. and what is it I need to do to get me to the place that actually makes me thrive? I'm not saying quit your job because you need the job, right? But if at the moment you're having those issues where you're like, what's my long-term goal, what's my short-term goal, and you're not sure, it's okay to step back for a second and say, this is not working for me, but do I have what I need to get me to the place to do the thing that I want to do? So is it education? Is it exposure? Is it more people in your network? I think you and I chatted about a network once. I said, Sui, I need to build my external network a bit more. What is it you need to do? I can't play golf to save my life, but I'm going to try. This year, it's my challenge because I can't play golf, but I'm going to do it because, one, I want to learn. It's a new challenge, but also I get to interact with different professionals in that space. It's not comfortable, but I'm going to do it, for example. And so we can let's check in June that I've said playing golf. I hope I will. But what I'm trying to say is understand where you want to be, understand what you have to get you to where you want to be, understand what you also don't have to get you to where you want to be, and then begin to plan for how you get what you don't have to get you where you want to be. So, like I said, remember that circle we draw?
Yeah.
You want to get to, I don't know, international podcast level, which we are clearly from Uganda now. But you're asking yourself, okay, do I need more studio equipment? Do I need to plug into a platform? Must I sign up to this and that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In Zambia, you're great. You're doing what you have to do. But if you want to grow, you want to go to your next step, what you need to understand where you are, what you have, and what you don't have, and how you're going to get what you don't have. And by that, it's not always money. And sometimes when people hear this, they think, I don't have money. Sometimes it is human beings. Sometimes it's the internet. There's free courses. You want to be a super digital ambassador. Do you even know what it means to have impressions, clicks, things like that? You haven't just like, me, I'm going to be a digital. No, you need to understand, right? And there's sometimes the free resources for stuff like that. So for me, my advice is, again, truthfully speak to yourself, understand what you want. Do you have what it takes, or do you have what you need to get you to that space? And if you don't, how are you going to get those things that you need? Yeah, sometimes it's money. So is it going to be a long cut? Are you going to work as a teller, then go into sales, then go into this way to eventually reach and say, I want to be a corporate affairs manager at Standard Chartered, for example? It may be long, but it is what you need to do to get you to where you want to be. That could be anything. It could be you're in school. Whilst you're in school, let me give an example. I want to be in a development organization. Maybe just volunteer. Don't get paid. Just volunteer. Give your time and say, you know what, I don't want to be paid. I just want to be here. And you learn and you learn and you learn. It's not great because when we hear you don't want to be paid, you're like, give me no money. You're crazy. But do that. Do that. Like sometimes it's not easy. There's nothing that ever comes in a silver spoon, honestly speaking, at least not in my world. So it may be the long route, inverted commas, but even if that's what you need to do in the moment, take the route and learn along the way. Remember, I said to you, the first thing I said to you is there's nothing I've experienced in my whole career that has never paid off, including what felt like a bad experience, because it will pay off.
My last question, what would your top 5 advice be to young professionals who are trying
Top
to build their
5?
career? Yeah, like 5 things you'd like to advise people who are trying to build their careers.
Number 1 is be your true self. Authenticity for me is a big deal. Number 1, be your true self. Number 2, build goodwill. By that, I mean your attitude. It's been said so many times, it is not cliche. Your attitude will determine your altitude. It will determine how high you go, maybe even how fast you actually go. Number 3, be kind. Be kind to yourself, first of all. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. It does pay off. Number 4, I would say failure will only be failure if you don't learn from it. Okay? So it will be a failure if you just say, yeah, but Mandy, I failed, that's it. But if you choose to learn the lesson, it was not failure. So failure will only be failure if you choose for it to be. And my last one would be take the first step. What would it hurt? You could stay in one spot and do nothing and wish, or you could take the first step and begin to navigate your way through this path you want to actually take. That's me being put on the spot, but I think that was 5.
Yeah, for someone who talks a lot, it shouldn't be difficult.
Well,
yeah, it's been a long one, but
yes.
I can't even put a finger on the lessons I've learned from this conversation. And for me, it feels like, is that anything where you feel like you know someone? I was like, you know what, I'm cool. You know, like,
yes. Have I not told you about that? I think I have.
Sure, you have a uniform somewhere. Yeah.
I should have kept one.
Yeah, but thank you for the conversation. I think it's very insightful. And also that we're having it at the beginning of the year. For most young people, this is a time then when you begin to evaluate your career options, your career choices, your direction. Because like I did say, most people struggle with direction. You live for today. I'll show up tomorrow. And then before you realize it, 3 years have gone by.
Yeah.
And you are sitting there with your supervisor doing your, performance evaluation. And you go like, it's been 3 years, what have I done? You know? And that also goes back to lack of clarity. So because I wasn't sure what I wanted, I'm here and I can't complain because I had no goal. So wherever I've arrived, you had no plan. So why are you complaining?
Yeah, you've arrived. Exactly.
You've arrived.
Yeah.
You know? So no, thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you, Sue.
And for the rest of the year?
So you'll probably be the first person I'm letting into this, but in 2023, I am calling this journey my pursuit of happiness. And I know someone said, why would you be pursuing happiness? Because actually, do you know when you're happy, you do things. You can be creative.
And you focus.
And let me put it this way. It is not possible that you're going to be happy 100% of the time. And maybe that's why I've been taking my time to break down these thoughts to myself. But, and it's almost ignorant to think you're going to have a breeze throughout the year. But when I say pursue it, is be very deliberate. Be very deliberate about decisions you make, about decisions you allow, about reactions you permit, about experiences you put yourself in. Be very deliberate. And so when you have that tough experience, have it, experience it, feel it, but pick up from it and keep moving. So I am on a pursuit of happiness in
golf and, you know, all the things that you...
I will tell you about my golf. I will tell you, like, yeah. So first step, I don't have golf clubs. I don't have golf shoes. I don't have golf clubs. I don't have golf shoes. And I don't have the whole kit. But first step, I'm going to look for them. So
no, the first step was intention, you know?
Yes. So no, first step is, right, intention. Second step is I have already gone online to look for these golf shoes. I also have a friend of mine. No, I actually lined up a friend of mine who's meant to teach me. So there we go. So that's, I can't play, like I said, I can't play golf to save my life. But I know a friend who does play golf. So yeah, I'm going to learn golf.
No, all the best, Kyembe.
Thank you,
all the best. Yeah, I'll keep interacting. Thank you very much for being a part of the podcast. It's been, I think, one of our longest podcasts. And like she said, she talks, so you didn't expect it to be short, did you?
Really?
Yeah, so no, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for being part of this one. I don't know if you guys can pick up on the rain, but it's raining. But I trust this is a very good microphone, so you didn't even notice it was raining until I told you it was raining. But why I'm telling you it's raining is because, I'm telling them it's raining so that they can have hope that load shedding will end because the water levels, are rising. But then they'll tell us, no, it rained, but it only rained in Lusaka. But our thing is in Kariba, but story for another day. But thank you very much for being part of the podcast.